Kia ora!
Kia ora.
And welcome back to Video Drones. And if it is your first time here, g'day, how's it going? Nice to see you. We review films, we love films, and at the moment we're going through a bit of a top 10 phase because of the Sight and Sound top 10 films of the year, which comes out
3
decades,
days.
sorry. In 3 days, every decade they release their top 10 films, which is like a big deal because it's once a decade. So we thought we'd continue that with our most overrated directors of all time.
It's the BFI she was talking about.
The BFI, yes. Yeah, we talk a lot about the directors that we love. And so obviously that there are directors that we absolutely can't stand. Excuse my voice, we recorded some of our Moira Mother songs together on Monday in a really great studio in Christchurch. It was a fantastic experience, but my voice is still recovering because I scream so very much. And we've had a big week.
We have.
We've had some big opportunities come to us, and I haven't had much sleep, but I am slowly recovering, so we could bring you this. And also we saw Bones and All, which we're going to have to talk about because, oh my god, that was amazing.
Yes, it was.
So good, talking about great directors.
We'll be doing that soon.
We will. But without further ado, we're both going to go from number 10 to the absolute worst. Number 10 is like, pretty shit. But then number
They're
1
all
is
pretty
the
shit,
absolute, they're all pretty shit.
was-
We have ranked them because, that's what people do.
Yes, but it was hard for me to get it in order. I just hate them all, really. They're all number ones for me, in a way.
Yes, but we'll start with our 10s,
Yep.
and we'll just go back and forth. We'll just smash it out.
Yeah.
All right?
Still
Yeah. Start? Okay. Shall I start?
Go for it.
My number 10, so the light's going to be changing on and off because we've actually got the sun coming in. It's doing some weird patterning, but I think that's kind of artistic, so we're just going to go with it. Number 10 for me is Quentin Tarantino. Now, he's number 10 because I used to quite like some of his films. In fact, I used to like a lot of his films quite a bit. But then, watching them as an adult, I just kind of cringe. I cringe a bit.
I am entertained by his films, always, but his personality is irritating, and his personality always comes through in nearly every character that he writes for.
Yeah, that's the problem. He's inside his films just far too much.
Yeah, I mean, I find having said that, interviews with him are quite entertaining because he's just so obnoxious.
He truly is.
But he does have some good taste in films if you're into like exploitation cinema and stuff, which I have been of late. So he probably wouldn't be as high up on
your shit list.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Like I do definitely think he's overrated.
I think he's super, super overrated. He's like, people are so obsessed with him, and he's really not that great.
I don't mind Jackie Brown, because that's slightly more subtle than his other films, and that's
And I really like his the guy that he works with quite a bit,
Robert Rodriguez.
Robert Rodriguez is underrated in my opinion. I think he's actually pretty freaking awesome. But Quentin Tarantino, he's a shocking actor too. I kind of
he's terrible.
He's so bad, but he pops up.
He
in
ruins
so many
any
movies.
film that he acts in. Yeah.
Especially Western Django, Sukiyaki Western Django. That was one of the worst
Yeah,
things I've ever
That's
seen.
embarrassing.
Oh.
We watched Little Nicky recently, which is
Oh,
awful,
man,
but he made it even worse.
I really couldn't. That was. I did not like watching that. But we were trying to go through a bit of a Adam Sandler thing because he has made a couple of good films like Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems.
Well, it was more. I was going through a Drew Barrymore
Oh, that's
thing,
right. Yeah.
and she happened to be in one of his films.
She did. She did.
I've already done an Adam Sandler thing, though. I ran the time that Uncut Gems came out, just to kind of see what else he did. And some of them are kind of funny, but you've got to get in that headspace for it because it's very infantile humor.
Yeah, I can't really handle that kind of humor. Man, the light's gone crazy. Good shadows gone. Anyway, what's your number 10?
My number 10 is Edgar Wright, who's actually a good friend of Tarantino's. They kind of
He's on my list too.
They're always gushing about each other. I just think he's very overrated. I'm not a fan of Baby Driver. I'm not a fan of the way he uses music. It saturates the film with music, and not music that I like either, and overused music in some cases, and just the editing choices that he makes. And I'm not a big fan of Shaun of the Dead either. Like that's probably the one of his that I don't mind as much, but I really didn't like Baby Driver and
that's
things
weird
like The
how
World's
people
End,
love that.
Scott Pilgrim,
Oh, no, Scott Pilgrim actually.
Hot Fuzz. You know, these are all things that I just not my kind of thing at all. And and people seem to love his stuff.
Yeah.
He did one thing I do like that he did was the Sparks Brothers.
Oh yeah, he did that. That's
the
right.
documentary about Sparks, which we're huge fans of.
I'm glad he did that because more people do need to know about Sparks.
Yeah,
definitely.
And he did Last Night in Soho, which was all right as well.
It's okay.
Yeah,
but
probably, but
overrated.
just because it's a thriller kind of horror, and we like that genre, so it was all right. But
and visually, it was better than.
I like Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomason, that is a New Zealander, so we're patriotic. No, we're not at all. But
kind of. In some regards, we are.
It's nice to see someone, but actually, I'm going to say it on this list that I don't like patriotic directors really.
No.
But we'll get to that soon.
Well, okay, my number 9. This is going to piss off so many people, but Wes Anderson.
It's just your opinion. So.
I don't like Wes Anderson. I find him boring, overrated. His palettes are gorgeous. I think he's
become
visually he's got an interesting style.
I don't mind his films. I used to love them actually in the 90s, but I think he's become sort of a bit samey in the last decade, especially.
I just find
I quite liked. You seem to enjoy the French Dispatch.
Yeah, that actually wasn't too bad.
It's the best thing he's done in a long time.
That wasn't too bad, and I actually really, really liked Rushmore way back in the day when I saw that. I thought it had a really good soundtrack.
You need to see Bottle Rocket, the one he did before Rushmore, because that's really, really good, and it's it's quite different because it's very low budget, so it doesn't have all the like sweeping, colourful stuff that he was.
Yeah, I just find it kind of strained and dull, and I don't generally like the characters in his films.
I fell asleep during Isle of Dogs at the movies, but I fall asleep.
You fall asleep in quite a lot of films, which is so weird. Like I've never fallen asleep in a public place in my life.
I know a lot of people who do.
Really?
Yeah, I know of a lot of people. I hear about people saying they're falling asleep.
Okay. Yeah, so, Wes Anderson, sorry, not into him.
I mean, I really liked Royal Tenenbaums.
I didn't.
And I probably my favourite of his is The Life Aquatic, which you haven't seen.
I haven't seen.
We should watch that and Bottle Rocket.
But now that we know that Bill Murray's such a creep...
Darjeeling Limited was cool as well.
No, I didn't like the Darjeeling. That was also really boring. And the one about the hotel. I know Grand Budapest. Yes, I tried to sit through that like twice, and I fell asleep both times, and it's hard for me to fall asleep. So he's not.
If you don't like his shtick, then you don't like.
I don't
his
like
films.
his shtick, and I think he's very kind of hipster. I don't really like that.
Well, he isn't, but the people who
like him.
love his films are the kind of people that you see with those little man buns on the top of their head, which are.
I think they're kind of dying out, sort of slowly.
Well,
I still see them in some circles, though. Unfortunately. Number 9 for you. What would it be?
What is my number 9? Number nine. Kevin Smith.
All right.
I just find, again, it's the same thing as with Tarantino. I just find his personality so grating and obnoxious that I kind of don't care about his films. Like, I just don't want to watch them.
But he did Chasing Amy?
Yeah.
Right? I like Chasing Amy a lot.
I can't really remember that very well. So I can't really say whether I liked it or didn't like it. But yeah, I've heard some interesting people lately say that they really liked that film.
That film in particular had a big impact on me in my teenage years. Definitely. I found it really, really, really honest in talking about things that you don't often see talked about.
Yeah, I mean, he did Clerks, I think.
Yeah, I found them quite boring, to be honest. Clerks and like Mallrats. Did he do that as well?
Let's have a look.
I guess that's
Let's get to
like...
the bottom of this, Smith. Yeah, he did Clerks. I mean, they remember that our teacher at film school like showed us Clerks. I remember it was a big deal in the sort of mid-90s when it came out.
But I didn't understand why.
But I'm not that into comedy. So Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy,
Chasing
Dogma.
Amy's not really a comedy as such. Dogma's actually quite cool.
Yeah.
It's actually got some really interesting concepts.
He's incapable of making something that's not a comedy, kind of a comedy. So
yeah,
it's just like it's like Tarantino. He's kind of not capable of making something that's kind of funny as well. I mean, even his films about slavery and the Nazis and stuff. You know, they're funny. So
that's true. Yeah, no, I do agree that Kevin Smith is very, very overrated. Though.
I haven't watched Tusk, and that's the one that I'd be curious about, just because of the effects.
I mean, it's got body horror, which I like, but it's a stupid movie. I just don't get the point of it even existing. It's unnecessary.
But anyway, he's a dick, so that's my 9.
That's your number 9. My number 8, and it pains me to say this because I absolutely adore Terminator and Aliens, and The Abyss is pretty good, but sorry, James Cameron, you're so overrated, and I kind of hate all your movies from Titanic onwards. The Avatar movies are the biggest pile of steaming shit I could possibly imagine, just about. And talk about like a white savior freaking complex. This guy coming into the world of this beautiful, like, indigenous people on this paradise planet. You know, what could that be referring? It's just such a, like, white person, white savior, like, we can colonize your country, your planet, or your country, or your region, but we'll save you in the process. And we're also not like those other bad white colonizers. It is disgusting.
And guess what? His next, like, 5 films are Avatar sequels.
I'm so angry that got all
Who
that
would
money.
waste their whole life doing these bullshit kind of films like that?
Can you imagine all the money that's going into those heaping piles of CGI trash when all these other amazing films are not getting made because he's sucking all the money?
Billions of dollars.
It is disgusting, revolting, and James Cameron, why do you have to start sucking? I don't like romantic things either. That's why I don't like Titanic. I think it's bullshit. And it's you know how you like movies how like manipulate you emotionally, like Bammy. I'm just like nah, fuck off with that stuff.
Even True Lies, which was just before Titanic, was kind of dull, a comedy and dull, and it was quite misogynistic as well.
It actually was. Yeah.
So I mean, it was, I reckon, you know, Terminator 2 obviously is probably his best one. And Aliens,
Aliens was so good.
And The Abyss is alright.
It's okay. It's got some cool effects, really cool effects.
Those are great. But
the ending of The Abyss really sucked. I was just like, just wipe out everyone already. Like, why would you just hold back on that point?
When he's doing those sort of films, like dark sort of sci-fi films, he's better than anyone else. It's easy as easy as that. I mean, even Tarkovsky has said that he was a fan of Terminator, the first Terminator. So
there you go.
I mean, which is very weird. Very rare.
But he sucks now, so he's just going to keep sucking. I'm so angry about those movies being made. Yuck. What's your number?
My number 8 is Sam Mendes, who did American Beauty. And
all right, yeah.
I haven't seen it, but it's 1917. But I know that I won't like it.
I like the camera work.
Because I just don't like war films at all.
Yeah, but the camera work was absolutely groundbreaking. That's why I liked it, because there were these scenes and I'm like, they must be doing this with some kind of gimbal. Like, how the hell did they do that? It turns out they actually did use a gimbal, but it was like strapped to this guy who had to train for months to know how to use it.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting cinematographer. It's someone like...
I'm so excited about the cinematography.
Like one of the people that did like... There Will Be Blood or something like that. You know, so it's an interesting cinematographer. It's
one of those films that's like, you know, finally brought a new technique into the world of cinema. It's been a very long time since that happened. Since like Requiem for a Dream used those sort of front-facing cameras. So I really respect it in that regard. I don't really care. I mean, the story was sad, but I was just transfixed with the cinematography.
He's someone that I dislike because of his like kind of... He has a very different approach to kind of like people's personalities and emotions and things that are just kind of like what's the word, sickly, and kind of... American Beauty is a good example.
That was such a popular movie.
It was popular at the time, but it's developed this reputation for not just because of Kevin Spacey's character gushing over the teenage girl, but also just because it's kind of like that scene where it has this plastic bag, things like that. That's a perfect example of how this guy's mind works.
Oh, so even when I was younger, I was like, this is really inappropriate that this old man has a huge crush on a young woman and we see her boobs, and that's somehow okay. And we're supposed to think he's a good guy because he didn't go through with it.
What about Lolita, though?
Yeah, that's so problematic.
That's the whole film.
That's so problematic. Really. Rewatching that, there were a couple of moments I was like, wow, I'm so uncomfortable with this.
But yeah,
it was a good film. Sorry.
American Beauty, Road to Perdition. Jarhead wasn't as bad, and that's a war film.
I found it quite forgettable. I don't remember anything about it.
Jarhead. Oh, okay. No. Yeah. I mean, it's all right. It's kind of like Three Kings, which you haven't seen, which is very good. Revolutionary Road. Actually, that was one that I didn't mind as much. But Skyfall, I hate all those films.
Yeah, I'm not into James Bond.
Spectre.
There's some good villains in Bond films, but that's about it.
I just kind of don't like him. His new film, Empire of Light, which is just about to come out, I will watch that because it's got a score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, who I've been listening to a lot lately.
Country,
I'm not a Nine Inch Nails fan, but I really, really do love their scores.
Yeah.
I think Atticus Ross is a big part of why I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, that's my 8.
Number 7 is going to piss off all the Kiwis. Get mad about it. I'm going to say Peter fucking Jackson because, oh man, I do not like the Lord of the Rings movies.
Another one.
Didn't like King Kong.
Another one whose early work, up until Heavenly Creatures, or maybe The Frighteners,
Creatures
was good.
Was so good. That's one of my favourite films.
Yeah.
And I mean, Brain Dead and Bad Taste are pretty good as well.
Meet the Feebles.
Meet the Feebles, that is the most disgusting film.
My dad does sort of cartoons along those lines.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
So I really liked those early.
That was so disturbing.
Early films.
But I hate CGI, and I just...
Yeah,
ugh,
he's really like the equivalent of James Cameron. I think they're like buddies, actually.
And Weta Workshop, which he kind of set up, is just renowned for like completely exploiting all its all of its creators.
Toxic.
Totally toxic, totally misogynistic, a disgusting, festering culture, underpays its staff. It's just the rankest place. It has the worst reputation. So he hasn't done anything to kind of remedy that. So I have like no real respect for Peter Jackson anymore.
We just hate those sorts of films.
We hate those films.
We know that he can be a really good horror director as well. So, you know.
He can be such a good horror director, and he's got this bizarre bent sense of humour that especially comes through in like Brain Dead, which I think had a different name in America. It's one with all the zombies and the chainsaw and the lawnmower. It's such a great scene. But yeah, not into it, man. Just really, I like what it's done for the New Zealand film industry and that the world knows about our country and we get more film things happening here. But yeah, no, not a fan of Peter Jackson, sadly. And it's a shame because Heavenly Creatures was so good. What's your number 7?
My number 7 is Olivier Assayas. I always thought it was Oliver Assayas, but it's Olivier. It must be. And yeah, my order of my list might be wrong because there are probably some that I probably don't hate this guy as much as some of the others. In fact, there are some of his films that I don't mind. But I think he's overrated. I see him around in a lot of sort of lists of like world cinema sort of directors, and I just think he's overrated. Clean, one of his earlier films, not his first film, one of his early ones wasn't bad, and Demon Lover, that one, people hate that one, but I actually kind of do like that. But he did
I don't think I know his films.
Irma Vep and Noise, Boarding Gate, Summer Hours, Something in the Air. He did Personal Shopper and Clouds of Sil Maria.
Oh, see, I didn't like it that much.
Those were two that I didn't mind, but he's just a very meh sort of director, and people just love him, and I just
I remember
really
all the
don't
hype
get it. I don't get
Personal Shopper, and then I was like, why is there hype? This is so meh.
He's recently done a TV series of Irma Vep, which did not need a TV series. It's a pretty average film at best. So, because he sort of has remade it. And Wasp Network and Non-Fiction, I haven't even watched those, but I cannot see myself enjoying those. The ones of his that I like are more kind of like his sort of darker dramas, if that makes sense. But yeah, I just think he's overrated, so he's perfect for this list.
My number 6 is Michael Bay, Man of Explosions. And
he's almost like so outside the realm of good filmmaking that I don't even think of him as a filmmaker. No. I just think of him as like someone who makes these huge toys that are very industrial and kind of gross. But
they're wildly popular movies, and they make lots of movies, so he makes more of them. He got nominated for Oscars for Armageddon. Yeah. Like,
the only good thing I think he's ever done, and this is a controversial opinion because a lot of people hate these films, but he's got a production company called Platinum Dunes that produce horror reboots of things like in the early 2000s he did Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I really liked that one. Much, I liked it a lot.
They had a good amount of gruesomeness.
I love the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Practical effects were actually pretty good.
But yeah, it was very dark, and I guess it was cashing in on the torture porn kind of thing.
Sure.
But I liked it. It was very stylish and beautifully shot by Daniel Pearl, who did the original. shot the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Marcus Nispel, who directed it, is a music video director. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of his productions look like music videos, but yeah.
Speaking about how they look, I went to see the first Transformers movie because, of course, there's a bit of nostalgia there for me because I'm born in 1980 and we had Transformers and they were really cool. The cartoons were actually pretty cool. And so I think I brought one of my children along and I felt ill watching that film. Like, just all the transforming and all the chaos, and the only thing that kind of imprint I got from it is that it was just a huge hot mess and I couldn't stand it. And oh man, I just hate his stuff. I hate that he's even called a director. Directors like this, like, they're just the lowest common denomination.
Yeah.
Common denomination.
It's all about money.
Just trash, just absolute garbage for the brain.
He cannot consider that what he makes is art.
No, it's just sheer trash, just dumb explosion-y things, and I can't stand it. And he does that whole like emotional manipulation, but he does it so clumsily and so overtly. It's just not even worth it. All right, moving on. What's your
Okay, another controversial take here. Ingmar Bergman.
I've only seen one of his films so far, but I do not see what the big deal about Bergman is. Everyone's like, Bergman.
The film you saw is probably his best film.
Yeah, that's
easily in my
film.
opinion. Because we saw Persona together.
I've
seen it about 3 or 4 times, and I think the second and third times I watched it, I actually quite enjoyed it.
I don't want to see it ever again.
I've seen quite a few of his films, and you know, he's not the worst person on this list. But I just think he's very overrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the films of his that I have seen that I enjoyed, I saw.
I find it bland. I mean, good performances by the actresses, but bland and such a dry, sterile setting compared to the world of like Tarkovsky. I just don't understand why people aren't more excited about Tarkovsky and why they say Bergman in the same breath, because they are not comparable. Bergman is not. He's just not.
They were mutual admirers as well.
I think Tarkovsky was probably just being polite.
Well, yeah, probably. No. There are definitely things in Tarkovsky that I can see have kind of come from Bergman, especially late Tarkovsky, like Nostalgia and especially The Sacrifice. The Sacrifice wouldn't even exist if it weren't for Bergman, because he shot that in Sweden and he used the same kind of crew. Filmmaking crew, as you know, he kind of borrowed them from Bergman, and the actor in Nostalgia who sets himself on fire, he's from Bergman. He's in lots of Bergman films, and he was the main actor in The Sacrifice as well. So definitely, like,
you mean talking about On Fire and Nostalgia?
The actor in Nostalgia who sets himself on fire is a Bergman actor who Tarkovsky would not have been aware of if he hadn't have seen him.
Okay, but that still doesn't mean that Bergman's responsible.
I know, but I'm just saying that he was definitely a fan, and you can kind of see the way he kind of deals with relationships has sort of rubbed off on Tarkovsky in a way, compared to his earlier films. I think there is actually a little bit of an influence, which is probably why I've tried to watch quite a lot of his films. I saw The Magician recently at the Film Society here, and I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed that. I think I was in the mood for something light, and it was sort of a comedy, which was actually quite funny.
It's weird for you to like a comedy.
I'd never seen a comedy of his before, and it was really good. The Virgin Spring is good. Through a Glass Darkly, Winterlight, The Silence, Persona, Hour of the Wolf.
Well, if you like all of these, why is he on here?
Because he's made like fucking 70 films. But I mean, they're not amazing films, but they're the ones out of his films that I didn't mind as much. Okay. You know, but I've got to really be in the mood for him. He can be a real slog if you're not.
Yeah. So lots of work and little payoff, in my opinion.
Fanny and Alexander, that's a film that a lot of people say is a big influence on them. Luca Guadagnino has said that watching the making of Fanny and Alexander kind of taught him how to make a film, because he saw that Bergman didn't know what he was doing, and he really loved knowing that another director doesn't know what they're doing and can kind of like feel their way as they're going.
Okay.
So
valid.
Yeah, and also Ari Aster and Robert Eggers love Bergman. He's their favourite director, and
it makes me not like them a little bit less.
They really like Cries and Whispers. But I think if you ask any director who they like, most of them are going to say Bergman. Anyway, that's my rant.
My number 5 is Clint Eastwood, because while Gran Torino was pretty good and I really liked the message and everything, American Sniper is one of the worst things that's ever been put to celluloid.
When I saw that at the movies, people stood up and started clapping.
And this is in New Zealand. It's like, are you alright? Are you alright? That is one of the, like, it is just pure propaganda.
It was probably
American propaganda.
It was probably a couple of American tourists who like stood up and started clapping, and then everyone else. New Zealanders probably felt bad if they didn't clap, so they.
Yeah, that sounds like something Kiwis do. Because apparently, so Amanda Palmer, who like lives in New Zealand, she tweeted this thing about how like when Biden won the election, she walked into like a cafe in Waiheke Island in New Zealand, and everyone clapped, and Kiwis were like, everyone was like, "There's no fucking way that Kiwis clapped for you, like shut up, there's just no way," caused all this drama, and she kind of had to apologize because Kiwis aren't the sort of people that will do that. Maybe if the cafe owners were like American and there were a bunch of Americans there, which is entirely possible because Waiheke is like coated in overseas wealthy people who like to pretend they're part of the hippie lifestyle while having enormous amounts of money behind them. So yeah, Gran Turismo, American Sniper is honestly a film that I hate with every molecule of my being, especially coming from someone who's as well respected as Clint Eastwood. It's so racist.
He's
it's
very
so
macho.
xenophobic.
His
yeah, he is. He is.
I'm not a fan of all of his Dirty Harry films, and they take a big chunk of his early directing.
See, I kind of like westerns, but yeah.
But Dirty Harry's not westerns. Dirty Harry are the kind of, they're almost like spy films in a way. It's just like he's a bad guy who takes down bad guys.
That's right.
But a good bad guy. But I don't mind some of his films because there was a...
Yeah, but he just like made my shit list with American Sniper.
The way I started to think about him a little bit differently is I'm a big philosophy fan, and there's a French philosopher, Alain Badiou, who wrote a book on cinema, just called Cinema, and he had a chapter on Clint Eastwood, and I kind of went and watched some of his films again with a sort of a different way of looking at them, and quite enjoyed them. I mean, they are quite interesting and, philosophically quite interesting. I quite like his film Bird, about Charlie Parker. A Perfect World is the one really that Badiou was writing about, with a sort of a crime movie.
Like I said, Gran Torino, I really liked that one. That really touched me. Exactly. And I thought he wasn't a racist, xenophobic piece of shit, but he kind of is with American Sniper.
And Blood Work and True Crime, some of these.
I don't know. Honestly,
Mystic River was pretty good.
It was alright.
It was alright.
I think that's a very overrated film.
I think it's one of his better films, though.
But I think it's very overrated.
$1 Million Baby.
I still haven't seen that.
Okay. That's, not too bad.
Yeah.
Changeling is a crime film with Angelina Jolie, which is not too bad.
I just, honestly, the maker of American Sniper is just... Two thumbs down, man.
Richard Jewell.
It should not have been made. I just can't get over how awful that film was.
Yeah.
And the damage it would have done to certain communities because of it. And just what it would have stirred up within the very racist, xenophobic population
very patriotic
so
films.
Patriotic. And he's so good at emotionally manipulating people with his like sad stories. Like Gran Torino really, I think it made me cry. So he incorporated all those skills that he has into making... like the worst piece of American propaganda that's been made.
I think we should all get together and celebrate each other's cultures rather than like rabidly, cheering for our own cultures. And America is very, very good at that. And
so disappointing. Yeah. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Ron Howard, another perfect example of a very patriotic director who has this very syrupy way of...
I like Cocoon when I was little, though.
Dealing with emotions.
Cocoon, I like things about aliens.
I sometimes get excited with some of his films and think I'm going to enjoy it because of what they're about. But then when I watch it, it's just his personality, obviously, and what appeals to him is just not in any way overlapping with what I like.
Syrupy. I haven't seen Cocoon since I, was like a kid, but I did like that when I was young. Poor aliens. Yeah. Poor aliens.
So what else did he do here? Yeah. Cocoon, Willow.
Willow is so messed up. It's such a scary film. There's some effects in there. There's like a creature that basically gets turned inside out. That's horrifying for children. There's lots of really scary moments, and the people turn into pigs. Oh, that was so scary.
So you like Willow?
Well, it scared the shit out of me.
You're allowed to like stuff that I hate.
I don't know if I liked it because it scared me so badly, but it's certainly an interesting film.
I mean, I forgot that they'd done that.
They're doing a TV series about it now.
I bet they are.
Which I don't know if it really needs.
So probably the most recent one of his that I rewatched was Backdraft, the one about sort of fire.
Yeah, that's kind of forgettable as well. Everyone was raving about it, and I finally watched it, and I was like, that's right.
Firefighters, yeah.
It's
has some interesting actors.
Brave American firefighter.
Exactly. And far and away, Apollo 13. I love space movies, but it's the most patriotic space movie ever.
America.
Ransom with Mel Gibson, Cinderella Man, Da Vinci Code. Frost,
that was so shit.
Frost, Nixon, Angels and Demons.
That's the dumbest
Rush.
movie.
I just hate these things so much.
America.
And recently, Hillbilly Elegy. It has, I think, was it Glenn Close and Amy Adams? So I was excited about the cast because I quite like them in other films.
Amy Adams is the most basic person in real life.
But the Arrival, yeah, she's very basic.
She's so sad. I don't get
The Arrival and Fatal Attraction. I mean, so they've been in some good films. I was excited, and I had to turn it off after 10 minutes, and it wasn't anything to do with how the characters being trashy. I mean, I love that kind of thing. It was just to do with the directorial choices he made. So anyway, I do not like his films.
Number 4 for me, Rob Zombie. Just yuck,
Yes.
yuck.
He would have been on my list way up. But...
Yuck. He's almost my number 1. I've watched one of his films and I tried to watch others and I was like, what is this? Like, I love horror, but what the actual living fuck is this bullshit?
His films are like the equivalent of white people with dreadlocks. In fact, he has dreadlocks.
Does.
And
and it's racist. There's like this character doing this thing with her eyes, and like it's just really cruel, and it's trashy, and it's got this big following, and I don't know why.
And they're just bad.
It's just I just think redneck bogan type people just think it's the greatest, but I don't consider it horror. It's just actual slimy bullshit.
There are always exceptions with some of these people, and the one thing that I don't mind as much with Rob Zombie, and it was kind of in a very guilty pleasure way, were his Halloween films. He did like a remake of Halloween, but the second one especially. The second one is just weird as fuck, and it's just like it's one of those films that's so bad that it's kind of good. It has scenes with this like horse, and almost like Twin Peaks does, this white horse, and it's very surreal. And it didn't have his usual kind of gross sort of characters and stuff.
So it makes my skin crawl this time. He gives horror a bad name. Thank you very much. He does. He really, really does. The sadness, I think, is art for its own sake, but his films are not. They just give horror a terrible name. And I kind of do judge people who like him. Sorry, I do.
And this is a nice segue into my number 4, which is David Gordon Green, who did the Halloween films. Yeah, you do not like him. I don't. I think he's overrated. The first Halloween film he did is probably the best thing he's ever done.
That was the new one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, where you're like all the men are stupid and all the women are awesome. I was like, this is a good message. I had a lot of fun with the first one. Yeah. Lots of kick-ass female characters.
But he's
and then being idiots.
But then like the second one was terrible, and then the third one was almost worse. And
I kind of liked it in a weird way.
Yeah,
it was so ridiculous.
Actually, the third one wasn't as bad as everyone has said.
I don't think it was as bad as people said.
But still, I mean, there are so many other directors that could have done the Halloween series reboot so much better than him.
They could have made something out of Halloween because it's quite a boring franchise. It's not as bad as the Jason thing, but it's still not. He
should stick to what he knows, which are these kind of like...
And he's going to do The Exorcist, right?
Oh, don't even remind me. That's one of my favourite films.
We don't think he's going to do a very good job, and we think it's a terrible idea, and this should just be like, nah, just don't do it.
It's coming out next year, and I'm scared. I'm scared to watch it.
Oh, if you were going to do The Exorcist movie, get someone who really knows what he's doing, and he's got a good, really good film behind him. He does not. So he's good at doing these intimate kind of rural dramas, really. So he should have kind of stuck to those. I reckon. Should we go into number 3?
Yeah, actually, just one thing. The best thing he's ever done is acting in Bones and All. as like
that's
that,
right, he's
that
in
wannabe cannibal.
Yeah, that was actually quite good.
So,
But he was directed by Luca Guadagnino.
exactly.
So
Anyone would be good in a Luca
Guadagnino
Guadagnino film.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Number 3 is Woody fucking Allen. I always thought he was a really weird, creepy dude, and
You were right.
I was right. I totally.
Well,
believe
you know,
well, it's
we don't know
for sure, but I totally believe Mia
we
Farrow.
watched that documentary, which had no input from Woody Allen's side, but was sort of, you know, it's pretty hard with all that evidence coming from sort of the police and people like that.
And how it was covered up because he's like this New York icon. I can believe, he's always made my skin crawl. And I remember watching a movie once with like Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz. And I was like, why does this movie suck so much? Like, I love these actors. What's going on? Why is this so terrible and creepy and weird? And then at the end, I was like, oh, because it's a Woody Allen film. That's why. I just don't understand the hype, and I think he's disgusting, and I just
they're all obsessed with sex and sort of older men and younger women, because they're all of his films are sort of autobiographical, really in some way. But you know, he's not. If putting that aside, like he's good at what he does. You know, I'm not a fan of him, but there are some of his films that I didn't mind. In fact, Midnight in Paris, I quite enjoyed. It was a very hard time in my life. I was watching that quite a lot, and it was, you know, lightening the mood. But yeah, I mean, what other ones did I not mind? I mean, Annie Hall gets so many people will say that's one of their favorite films. I do not understand that. I mean, In Manhattan looks beautiful because it has it's shot by Gordon Willis, but that's the one that is almost the worst as far as young girls go, because there's like a 15 or 16-year-old girl that Woody Allen's going out with, and he's like trying to teach her or coach her how to do things sexually that makes him happy, kind of.
I just think he really exploited the fact that he was so successful and so beloved, and he just did horrible, terrible things to lots of people during his life, and he's just an absolute scummy, disgusting parasite.
And we seem to be of the belief that you can separate directors from their work.
Yeah, sure.
I love Polanski's films.
I love Lovecraft, even though he was a disgusting, horrible human being. He was a racist piece of shit.
But you don't think that's the case with Woody Allen?
I just think his films suck as much as he does.
Yeah,
I feel sorry for the actors that have been involved with it, because they're good actors.
You probably need to see a few more.
No, I don't want to see any more.
His better films are, in my opinion, the ones that are more serious. I
don't want to talk about Woody Allen anymore.
Shadows and Fog.
No, I don't want to talk about him anymore.
I quite liked Match Point with Scarlett Johansson, and Cassandra's Dream with Colin Firth.
Poor Colin Firth.
Well, they all were desperate to work with him.
I know, and
actors, he's an actor's director.
It's disgusting.
You know,
yeah.
and Blue Jasmine with Kate Blanchett. I love her. So it's it's worth watching if you're a fan of the actor, really.
No.
And Irrational Man with Joaquin Phoenix as well. I mean, those are the ones that are kind of better, in my opinion. But still, he's so not one of my favorite directors.
What's your number 3?
My number 3.
I just don't like that man.
This is another controversial pick here. Christopher Nolan.
He was on my list as well, because he's the most rabid fan group that are just like.
That's why I call him Christ Nolan.
Nolan is not all that.
I mean, you know, like some of his films are kind of entertaining to watch, in the way that Tarantino's films are entertaining to watch, but I find his personality very kind of smarmy and
self-congratulatory.
Very, very, very,
clever.
Very happy with his brain.
Very preemie films. You know, he's had some great actors he's worked with, but just I do think he's really, really, really overrated.
The one of his films that I liked a lot more was Interstellar. And
we actually like that one.
And that's growing on me.
But that had a lot to do with Carl Sagan, that film. And anything that's got a bit of Carl Sagan in it is going to be awesome.
The reason I like it is it's a space film, and it's got a huge budget, and, you know, it tackles some interesting ideas, and the soundtrack isn't bad. And But I mean, you know, Hans Zimmer is always better when he's working with other people.
Yeah.
Like his Dune score was great.
And the stuff that he didn't release on the actual album was really, really good.
He's got a couple of good cues on Interstellar and Inception, things like that, and Dunkirk as well. But yeah, it's, I don't know. I saw what was his latest film. I've forgotten the title. I kind of don't.
They're forgettable. They are forgettable films. So,
his latest one was quite forgettable, and a lot of people complained that it was too clever for them, and they had to watch it multiple times. Or something like that? No, it wasn't. I need to.
Tenet?
Yes, Tenet.
Yeah, I haven't even bothered. I heard the sound was quite terrible, so I don't
the
like
sound.
Yeah, the sound.
Well, yeah,
was really
I saw it at the movies with Lisa, and it was just like it bombards you with explosions, and it's very sort of constant, and
yeah, not my cup of tea.
I don't know.
Inception was okay, but I didn't think it was really as clever as people thought it was. It wasn't hard to follow.
No, they're not.
It really wasn't hard to follow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if you found it hard to follow, but it's really
the Prestige was probably better, and
that had its moments.
And what was
it was nice and that was darker, quite dark. So
yeah, and Memento gets a lot of.
I do think Memento is a really good film. I still stand by that one, but that was ages ago.
I actually, in Insomnia, I probably enjoyed more than most of his films with Al Pacino and Robin Williams as the bad guy. It's a remake of like a Norwegian film or something. Okay. Yeah, Robin Williams is a serial killer, and Al Pacino is like trying to track him down and kill him, or bring him in.
I don't know if I've seen it right. There's one about you can't sleep because you're in Alaska and there's no.
Yeah,
is that the one?
Yeah.
Is it called? Oh, right. I thought it had Sean Penn in it.
No, it's Al Pacino as a cop, and he can't really sleep.
Yeah, that was alright. It's still, like I say, pretty forgettable if I can't remember. I don't even remember Robin Williams being in it.
He's very different in that film. He's best when he's different, like 1 Hour Photo. I reckon. That
was yeah. I really like 1 Hour Photo. I was not expecting that. It was quite beautiful looking too in a weird way. Anyway, I'm going to quickly go.
He's making a film, I'll just say, about Oppenheimer, who invented the atomic bomb. A lot of interesting people, actors in it. Robert Downey Jr.
There was a Kiwi that
Cillian
helped.
Murphy.
There was a Kiwi that helped split the atom, so that's a
Gary Oldman.
National shame.
That you're talking about my my great grandfather. Yeah.
No, your great grandfather helped create one of the deadliest weapons.
But he didn't do it for that reason.
I know he didn't, but it's kind of intense, huh?
My great grandfather.
Great grandfather. Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, I'll always watch his films, but.
He's definitely overrated.
Yeah, very overrated.
He's the epitome of overrated. I'm going to really quickly do number 2 because it's Edgar Wright, like Nick's talked about. I like any kind of zombie movie, so Shaun of the Dead, I was like, that's kind of cool. I loved it when Dylan Moran. I love Dylan Moran. He's Irish like myself and my ancestors. I loved seeing him being ripped apart. That was quite cool. But his other films, man, I do not get the hype. They're really blokey. They're dumb as fuck, and I just find him as a person kind of like in interviews I'm just like, oh yuck, he's just annoying and thinks he's really okay. So the thing we recently were watching Eli Roth's History of Horror, and bloody Edgar Wright said that basically the zombie genre was almost dead, was pretty much dead, and there were no zombie movies made for like 15 years before he did Shaun of the Dead, which is absolute.
28 Days Later was 2 years before.
28 Days Later, we had Dawn of the Dead. No, it was not dead, you freaking idiot. You did not revive the zombie genre, and you should wash your lungs out with soap for saying so. And it's a comedy zombie anyway, so it's not, you didn't do anything really. You just did a funny zombie thing. So I cannot stand him for saying that. I'm just like, are you alright, mate? Do you really think you brought the zombie genre back because you are fucking deluded? Totally. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is Jordan Peele. Another controversial opinion.
That is controversial.
But why should it be controversial? He's a bad director.
I like Get Out a lot. Like, I really rate
I didn't mind it, but it was not
highly.
Oscar worthy. That was a political decision right there.
It was, but yeah.
It's I don't really get it. I think it had some good things in it, but as a filmmaker, I'm talking about technically. He's just not a technical filmmaker, really, in an interesting way.
Nope reminded me of like a Spielberg movie.
Nope was the sleepiest film ever.
I was really disappointed with that. I was expecting
the soundtrack was the best thing.
Yeah, it was. That film. There was something very off about it. It just didn't work to me at all. It was just very janky.
Nope.
And I thought Us was, I think I didn't mean to be, but I found it absolutely hilarious because it just wasn't scary. The twist, man, I figured that out in like the first 5 minutes of the film. Like it was the most obvious twist ever.
Us is my favourite thing he's done, actually.
Really? I thought it looked quite
using
cool.
that favourite is not the right thing to say, but I think it's the best thing.
I thought it was so silly and so not scary. It's some good performances, but for some reason the way it was treated, it just came across as being silly and funny. And he
just needs to suddenly get a lot better if he is going to live up to what the heights that everyone holds him up to. Like I think
he seems like an absolutely lovely human, though.
He seems very nice.
He's on this list that's actually like an absolute sweetheart, and I have a lot of respect for him.
And he's really helping other people with horror films. Yeah. He's like producing them and stuff. I love that. He's an underrated person. I just don't think he knows how to make films very well. That's all.
Yeah, but I loved Get Out. I thought that was such a good film, and I thought it did deserve an Oscar. That's just me. What's your number 2?
That was my number 2.
Oh, I thought we were talking about. Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, so now we've come to the grand winner, our number 1s of most overrated directors of all time, and mine. It's no surprise. Zack Snyder. Dude, you suck. Your movies suck. They blow. It's weird because his first movie, Dawn of the Dead, is actually one of my favourite zombie films, which is saying a lot. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and it's so bleak and it's so dark. And some of the things that happen with the chainsaw, good. Oh man, at the end, that is brutal. And
some choices with music and stuff.
Oh, it's actually so cool.
It was exciting. I was like, it's an exciting new director. I'm very curious to see what they do next. But he's just turned into this kind of like
Justice League,
cousin of Michael Bay, kind of like his mass-produced kind of like
patriot.
They all look like music videos.
So
I mean, a lot of directors used to come from doing music videos, so that it kind of makes sense. But yeah, they're all style and no substance, and his style isn't that good.
It isn't that good. It's sloppy. And he really put the nail in the coffin and became number 1 because of Army of the Dead, which is the worst. One of the worst films in existence. Not like worst as in like it's propaganda and it's shit like Clint Eastwood's film, but isn't just terrible. There's really nothing good about that movie. There's even like a zombie tiger. It just no. I was just like, wow, okay, so he's returning to the Dawn of the Dead era. Maybe this will be great. It was so bad. I rate that 0 out of 10 stars. And I think the actors who were involved were embarrassed to be there, quite frankly. They looked embarrassed and they should be embarrassed. Why did you do that? Yeah. So he's easily my number 1. I just hate everything he stands for. And I hate his films. And they're sloppy and they're terrible. And they're just big, dumb, explosion-y crap that's totally forgettable. And it's just like junk food for your brain. And that's it.
And my number 1 is, and I hate this body of work, Steven Spielberg.
But he's done some good stuff.
Well, what? I think Jaws and Jewel, like early films.
Jewel was good.
Okay, but Jewel
was quite cool, surprisingly.
He's another person who just has a very different way of looking at the world.
Yeah.
Than me, and
it's quite pulpy almost.
Yeah, he's kind of like a kid, and he always has kids in his films.
Encounters of the Close Encounters,
which isn't a bad thing.
So boring. I was quite excited to see that, but that's such a boring film. Boring. Very overrated. Very.
I really don't like the Indiana Jones films. When I was a kid, I probably found them entertaining.
But then the Crystal Skull was just terrible. It made my skin crawl.
And E.T.,
so bad.
Not a fan.
Yeah, I don't get the big thing over E.T.
The Colour Purple, no.
I thought that was good. Sorry, I really like that. I really like the actors and Whoopi Goldberg in that.
You should go and watch, if you want to see a white guy doing a film like that, you should go and see Jonathan Demme's Beloved.
Oh.
That's one of Luca Guadagnino's favourite films with Oprah Winfrey.
I think it was the performances in The Colour Purple that were just so good. But yeah, it's a white guy doing such material that is a bit cringy. And Empire of the Sun, I mean, that's probably his best film, I think that's his best film. That was actually a very good film. Yeah, very young Christian Bale.
But then Jurassic Park.
Yeah, you don't like Jurassic Park.
Not really.
I really don't.
Jeff Goldblum's easily the best thing about
And
it.
Sam, yeah.
I'm just not into
And Laura
films
Dern.
like that.
But yeah,
Big-
it's a bit...
big dinosaurs. His films are just a bit light for me. Schindler's List, that's not light, but
That's a good film. It's an important film.
yeah, if you
And he's a good person to tell that particular story.
Look
He's allowed
up-
to tell that one.
you should put on YouTube Michael Haneke and Schindler's List, because he has some interesting things to say about Schindler's List that I totally agree with. He hates it.
Oh, really interesting.
Saving Private Ryan, AI, artificial intelligence.
Was that the one with the little robot?
That was exciting because it was originally a Kubrick film. But if Kubrick had made it, it would be so different. So different.
Yeah, it's just I kind of like any movie about AI and robots. I have a real soft spot for them, but I did think that film was quite long and boring.
Probably my favourite film of his later career is Minority Report, just because it's a lot darker and it's sort of a thriller. And
it wasn't too bad.
Tom Cruise was not bad around that time.
Around that time, yeah.
That's one of his last good films. Yeah, and then Catch Me If You Can. No, that
was terrible. I don't know what everyone was raving about there. I was like, this is...
War of the Worlds isn't
That's
terrible.
not actually that bad.
It's not terrible.
It's not that bad. But that also, once again, is very, very dark. I mean, aliens are basically capturing and spraying humans all over the planet to terraform it. Like, that's cool. I like that. Has a few really creepy moments.
The Terminal, Munich. Actually, I didn't mind Munich.
I haven't seen that one.
It's sort of a thriller. Political thriller.
West Side Stories. I haven't seen that.
Lincoln. Yeah, Ready Player One. I mean, yeah, The Fabelmans, which I've just read something today saying that it's like a self-indulgent slog. It's an autobiographical film. So, but I will be watching that, or I'll be skipping it to the middle where David Lynch plays John Ford in it. So, but anyway, that's my number one. Honourable mentions. I'll just
quickly go through because my butt is falling asleep. It is
Richard Linklater, not a terrible director, but very overrated in my opinion. Angelina Jolie, she's awful. She's like one of the worst directors ever. John Ford, I don't like westerns, so that's probably why. Francis Truffaut, he's the most overrated of the French New Wave. George Lucas, for similar reasons to Spielberg.
Yeah, all of his best stuff is because of the people he worked with, who had some really good
But I probably prefer him to Spielberg, actually.
Wow, that's a huge...
A little bit, but I hate him. I still hate him, don't worry. Anna Lily Emir Pur, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, sorry. But she did A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. I really didn't like it. I just don't like her approach to films. It's
Sorry, that was another I was like, I'm supposed to like this.
People love that
I'm supposed
film,
to.
but I just don't.
No.
Steven Soderbergh, I really like Traffic and a couple of his other films.
And he did The Nick, which was really cool.
Yeah, I don't even mind. We're huge Tarkovsky fans, and I don't even mind his Solaris remake. But yeah, I think he's a director who pumps out a new film every year. Yeah. Sometimes even 2 a year by the looks of it. So he's just like I think he needs to stop and spend more time on films to be good.
I think that would be really, really good if he did that.
Lee Daniels, who did Precious, I just find him really irritating in the same sort of way that I find Tarantino and Edgar Wright and other people.
Is he a white guy too?
No, he's not.
What?
No, he's really full of himself and has a lot of opinions that I just really don't agree with.
Because Precious, I thought, was a really powerful film.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't a white guy directing it.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, but no, I just don't like his films and generally. And this is controversial, being a New Zealander, but Taika Waititi, I really don't like his films.
I don't get why Jojo Rabbit was such a hit. I do not. I think that's a bizarre film. Like, the humour in it seems really inappropriate. I couldn't finish it.
I think it's more his personality and like him being all over the internet.
I do not get why.
It's like Thor as well. I think he can't help but
Boy was good.
Like that. Yeah, I don't even think I've even seen that.
Boy was pretty good. His short film was good.
Well, maybe, yeah.
And he seems like quite an interesting person. Like a really interesting person.
Yeah, no, I don't mind his personality. No. He's very funny and very entertaining, but I don't like his films.
That's very
But
yeah, I don't get Jojo Rabbit. Just do not get.
Well, if you don't like Wes Anderson, I don't.
I find them quite similar.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Ryan Johnson. who has done like what Star Wars films now, and I didn't like Brick and
Brick sucks.
and the films in between. I just don't like him.
So-called cinephiles that were going on and on about Brick, and I was like, no, guys, no, Brick is not a good film. I'm not afraid to say.
He's a big cinephile, and he interviewed Paul Thomas Anderson once, and that was probably the best thing he's ever done in his career.
Yeah,
I think.
Brick, honestly, if you guys are a cinephile and you like Brick, I don't know what you're on. It's actually not that good.
Do you have honourable mentions, or is
no?
Okay, cool.
Because we've pretty much got similar.
We do.
Thoughts and feelings.
So that's it.
That's it. We've done it. We've done our overrated directors. So next week, I guess we're going to look at the top 10. Our top 10
greatest films of all time.
Our top 10 favourite films of all time. I guess we'll kind of
we'll talk about theirs as well
afterwards. Yeah, we'll do like a separate video on that, like a reaction to.
Oh no, we should just intermingle it all together, I reckon.
It'll be a long video. Yeah, we'll see how we go. And we'll be back soon with
Bones and All.
Bones and All, because wow, I cannot stop thinking about that. We're going to see it again tomorrow. Thanks for coming. Nice to see you. Who do you think's overrated? Do you hate us now?
Yes, let us know.
Let us know. See ya. Bye.
And don't hate us. Bye.